Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Market Snapshot. What's happened in the Northern Virginia real estate market in the last 7 days in under probably about 8 minutes, usually 5. Here we go. All right, so we've added a new section to our market snapshot where we're going through contract trends. So we tend to run a little bit over the 5 minutes with this new information, but I think it's very valuable information as we are diving into not only what the market trends are, but what that means for buyers, what that means for sellers, what that means to expect on contracts. So that's why we're showing you these trends so that you can kind of see, what kind of concessions should you expect, what kind of contracts will you likely be competing against. So that's the reason for adding this stuff in. Excuse me. This is the week that is before the week of us going back to school here in Fairfax County. So we are looking at some decreased market activity anytime school shifts, whether starting into school or coming out of school. We'll see the market trends kind of take a little bit of a hit, both on the listing side and the seller side or buyer side as a general rule. So we'll see what the numbers look like and see if that's how this played out. But just keep in mind that this is an aberrant week. We'll get back, in the next week or two, we'll get back to what the market trend will be once everybody settles into school and everybody's back into their normal routines and everything. Okay, so let's dive into the stats and see what seems to be going on. Okay, so we have our black line, as always, is going to be our buyer activity. This is our demand. This is the number of properties that went under contract in the last 7 days. The teal line is our inventory, which is our supply, so our supply versus demand ratio. And this is the number of properties that came onto the market or came back onto the market in the last 7 days. So you'll see that, as expected, buyer activity did diminish this last week because of the beginning of school. So people are getting ready for their kids to start school. People are traveling, just kind of getting settled in and ready for quote unquote normal life to begin. So our buyer activity will typically drop at this point and maybe even drop a little bit next week. Inventory actually increased this week, which was a nice sign to see, because that gives buyers a little bit of relief this week, because you have less buyer activity, more inventory, less demand, more supply. So it moved us. You can see that they're pretty much spot on with each other. There's no gap. So if it moved us into a neutral market for this past week. So if you go down to our bottom market here, our normal market is going to be this gray line right in the middle. Anything above that is going to be a seller's market, which means that basically buyers are having to compete more for properties. Anything below that's going to be a buyer's market, which we have not seen a strong buyer's market in a very long time. But that's where the buyers would have the upper hand. So basically this past 7 days, we had more of a neutral market. We'll probably see a little bit of this over the next 7 days as well, because these weeks are split between, I pulled these statistics on a Wednesday, so it's going to be half of the week, before school started, and then half of the week after the week that school started. So it's probably going to be another, somewhat neutral market this next week, maybe even drop down a little bit into a buyer's market. But the main thing to see here is that you can see that buyer activity had diminished quite a bit, and then it picked back up, and over the last probably 6 weeks or so, it's stayed fairly steady, and it's actually pretty consistent with where it was last year. The differences this year is that inventory is significantly higher than it was last year. So inventory was here this year, last year inventory was down here. So that inventory is what's giving buyers a little bit of a choice, and that's why we're seeing a little bit more favorability towards the contracts with regards to what buyers are trying to get in those contracts. Now, if you look back here over the last 2 weeks, we had moved up into a seller's market. So if we looked into the contract trends, we kind of can see how that was playing out. So we're going to stick with the Virginia statistics here. So as usual, our 30% of the properties went above contract price in the last 7 days. This is 167 contracts received by Cardinal Title August 5th through 11th. So 30% went above list price, 35% went ask list price. So 65% of properties are going at asking price or above. 35% went below asking price. then you look down here at days on market and you have 57% were on the market for 21 days or less, which kind of fits into our 65% of listing price or above. So again, for sellers, you want to price your property in a way that it's going to sell ideally in the first 7 days, because then you're going to go above asking price, but certainly within the first 21 days so you can at least get asking price. Buyers, that means that you need to, when you're looking at properties, and if you see a property that's sitting on the market and it's been on the market, let's say 17, 18 days, it doesn't mean that you're going to get a discount necessarily. Have your agent run the comps, run the numbers, make sure the property is not overpriced, and then be prepared to put in that full asking price as long as it's priced appropriately. About 35% of properties are still overpriced for what their market value is, and those are the ones that sit beyond that 21-day mark, and then they start coming down in price. It doesn't mean that their value is coming down, it just means they're coming down to get more accurately priced to where the market will pay for the property. So that's important. Sellers, price it right. Buyers, you can strategize your offer strategy based on days on market, based on these market trends. What kind of contingencies are buyers getting? Finance contingency, about 72% of buyers are getting finance contingencies and appraisal contingencies. So this has stayed pretty consistent over the last several weeks. About 3/4 of contracts are having those finance and appraisal contingencies. What is interesting and what we really look at to see how competitive a property is the inspection contingency, and you can see that 41% of buyers were able to get the inspection contingency this last 7 days. This number is actually decreasing. It had been sitting around 30-35% at the most competitive time when we started tracking these numbers. It got as high as 50% of buyers getting those inspection contingencies, but now it's starting to pull back a little bit, and we see it pulling back because we are in this area here that we were moving into a seller's market, because you can see that we were having a gap between demand versus supply. So buyers, you just need to be prepared, and you know, a lot of these people that are not getting inspection contingencies are actually doing pre-offer inspection, so they're still getting the protection, but they're just not being able to include it in the contract. So just make sure that your agent is aware of the current statistics as you're writing your offer, so that you can either be competitive when you need to be, or you can be strategic when you have an opportunity to not be going up against other offers, but still get your offer accepted. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to sit down with you if you're a buyer, walk through our buyer consultation process with you to help you put together a solid plan and strategy to purchase your next home and make sure that you're protected all the way through. And then as far as sellers are concerned, we're happy to sit down with you, do a walkthrough on the house, give you recommendations for improvements to make to have that house prepared for top market value, and let you know what that top market value is likely going to be, especially in this market. If you'd like either one of these free consultations, reach out to us at 703-783-2143. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know, and have a great week out there. We'll see you guys next week.